everyone, welcome to day 8. Today we're going to be doing some multi-step inequalities with graphing. Now this is very much like solving multi-step equations. There is only one other thing that you might have to do when you solve an inequality. Of course it can't be quite the same, right? We have to add something on. So I'm going to do 3 problems with you today, and that should be plenty for you to go ahead and do that practice page I put on there for you. All right, let's go ahead and start with -3 times the quantity 2v minus 5 is less than -13 plus 4. Okay, we are going to go ahead and start by drawing the lines, okay, dividing them up. All right, step 1, we want to simplify each expression. So on this side, we need to do the distributive property. I'm going to distribute that -3 out. So negative times a positive is negative, 3 times 2 is 6, and nothing times v is still v. Negative times negative is a positive. 3 times 5 is 15, and then we don't have any variables. Is less than, and on this side I have 2 constants. Remember, constants stand alone. They constantly stand alone. So I will combine my 2 constants. I have more negatives than positives, and I have 9 more negatives than positives. Now, step 2 is putting the variable on one side, but our variable's only on one side, so we don't even have to do that step. So the last thing we're going to do is isolate the variable. So we are going to, remember, reverse PEMDAS. So I'm going to add a -15 to both sides. So that is, what is that? What property? The addition property of equality. All right. That will leave us with -6v on this side is less than, and on this side we still have, we have to add them together. We have -24. Now we're going to go ahead and divide both sides. Oh, this is a horrible glare. Let me, hold on. Move out of the camera for just a moment. I've got that glare out of the way, right? Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to divide both sides by a -6. Here's that one thing I told you about that's going to change. Because we are dividing by a -6, which is, remember, the same as multiplying by, I hope you said, a -1/6. It's the same thing. Whenever you multiply or divide by a negative number, the sign switches. So this will become v. Instead of less than, it is now greater than. And a positive divided by a negative, a negative and a negative is a positive. 24 divided by 6 is 4. So that is v is greater than 4. All right. Now we need to go ahead and graph that. Simple graph. You only need to make your line in one little line in between for the number that we have here, and that is a 4. The reason why we graph these and we don't graph equations is with an equation, we only have one answer. It's very specific. This one says any number greater than 4 is an answer. So that means 3, 4, 5, 6, all of those are answers. It could be 4.0009 or something, as long as it's greater. It does not include 4 though, so we make an open circle. And then if you take this sign and you think of it as an arrow, it says we color in everything to the right, okay? So there we have it. That is the picture, that is the graph that shows us that x is greater than 4, but does not include 4. All right, let's go ahead and try another. we have 5n plus 7 times the quantity, negative 6 minus n is greater than or equal to 4 times the quantity, n plus 3. Okay, there we go. Start out by dividing both sides so that we have an expression here and an expression over here. All right, on this first side, I see that we have to do the distributive property. Remember, distributive property has to be done first before combining like terms. And I notice on this side, I'm going to have to also do the distributive property. So starting left and working to the right, just like when you read, I'm going to just bring down the 5n, and then I'll multiply both of these by 7. So positive times a negative is a negative. 7 times 6 is 42. Positive times negative is again a negative. 7 times, remember there's a 1 there, it's implied. 7 times 1 is 7, and we have the n, which is greater than or equal to, and over here we have 4 times n is 4n. 4 times 3 is 12. Now we're not done on this side, because you may have noticed that we have like terms. We have a 5n and a negative 7n, so we need to combine those. So we end up with negative 2n and a minus 42, because there's nothing to combine with this one. And this side was already in simplest form, so we can't combine, so we will just write it down. Now step 2 is moving our variables so that they're on one side of the equation. Now, I tend to like to move my smallest over. However, you do have to have the variable on this side. Remember how a moment ago we learned that when you divide by a negative or multiply by a negative, the sign switches. Well, I'm going to show you one other way to do it also. I can move the variables over here, but let's say I put the variables on this side because this is smaller. So I'm going to go ahead and add 2n to both sides. Now the only reason why I would do that is I'll end up with a positive number over here. So this side will give me negative 42, and that's still greater than or equal to, and this is going to be 6n plus 12. All right, now understand what I did. This is a positive coefficient. Had I subtracted 4n from both sides, I would have a negative 6n over here. So wouldn't that swap the sign? Isn't that weird? It looks like it's not going to swap it here. So how can that be the same thing? So let's see what happens. So I'm going to subtract 12 from both sides. And over here we have negative 54 is greater than or equal to 6n. Now I'm dividing, but not by a negative, so it does not swap the sign. So this is now negative 9 is greater than or equal to n. All right, now I want the n on this side, so I have to flip everything around, and that means I have to read it the other way. So n is less than or equal to negative 9, so I have to write it n is less than or equal to negative 9. So what just happened to the sign? It just flipped. So that's another way you might see it sometimes. So if it's on this side, always just switch it so that your variable is on this side, okay? Now we will graph that. I'm going to write a negative 9 here. Now, open circle does not include the 9, but this says it's less than or equal to negative 9. So we have to include that. So we're going to color that in. And again, if you look at this like an arrow, it points to the left this time. So it's going to be everything to the left. So you can look at our graph and it says, oh, our answers are negative 9 or anything less than negative 9. Okay, so hopefully you can see how the graph matches this. All right, and just one more. This next one, you might want to write it down and then pause the video. Give it a try on your own. And then go ahead and start the video again and see how you did. See if you're ready to go on to that practice, okay? It's a nice long one. Oh, I like the long ones. Makes me feel really smart, but you know what? This is not really that tough. We're just repeating the same steps over and over and over. It's sort of like long division, right? Lots of steps, but you just repeat the same ones over and over and over. Very repetitive. It's a minus, sorry. -2. Okay, let me make sure I wrote that down right first. Looks good. All right, starting out by making lines. All right, I see that on this side, I need to combine like terms. So I have an x and I have a positive 3x here. I also see that I have a constant of a -8 and another constant of a 2. So I'll combine these first and get 4x. And that will give me -6 is less than. Now I'm going to go ahead and distribute that 6 out, the -6 out, and I have -6 times -8 is -48x. And -6 times -7 will give me +42. Now I have to distribute the 4 to both numbers. So 4 times 8x is 32x, and 4 times -2 is -8. All right, this side looks as though it's in simplest form already, so I'm just going to rewrite it because I notice that the other side is not in simplest form. I need to combine like terms now. So I have a -48x and a +32x. So I'll combine those first. There are more negatives than positive. How many more? 16. Remember, this is where you can use your calculator. So if you don't have a calculator yet, please ask your parents to go to Target, Walmart, pick up the calculator that we showed you before. I showed it on the welcome video. Please pick it up now or order it from Amazon. Do something, because a week before school starts, they're all going to be off the shelves. You're not going to find them. They don't stock enough for every student that needs one, okay? And then we're going to go ahead and combine our like terms. So 42 and a -8. So that will be, I have more positives than negative, and I have 34 more positives. I know that you can do this, but you're going to be doing so many things. We want to get you used to the steps, so you can use those calculators here, okay? Give yourself a little break. Now, we do have to combine our variables. We have to put them all together on one side, because if you're trying to isolate the variable at the end, how can you do that if you have some over here and some over here? So we have to move them all together. So I'm going to put them all on this side just because I want it on this side at the end anyway. So I'm going to add 16x to both sides. And we have 20x -6 is less than or equal to, and over here we have 34 left over. Now we're down to the good old two-step equation. So at this point you're saying, wow, it got easier quick, didn't it? So adding 6 to both sides, what property is that, everyone? The addition property of equality. So we have 20x is less than or equal to 40 and now I'm going to divide both sides by 20. What property is that? I know I'm dividing, but it is multiplication property of equality. So 20 divided by 20 leaves us with 1. We do not have to flip the sign because we are multiplying or dividing by a positive number. And 40 divided by 2 is, or 20 is 2. So there we have it. Let's draw a quick graph. we simply put a 2 here. Then we circle it. We ask, does it include the 2? Yes, it does. So we color it in. We look at this and make it into an arrow, and it says anything to the left. So look at the graph. Do you see how the graph says? The answers are 2 and all the numbers smaller than it. So x is equal to or less than 2. There you have it. All right, you guys, so the only thing we added that was different this time is if you multiply or divide by a negative, the sign switches. All right, so good luck, and I will see you on lesson 10. All right, bye-bye.